What's up, everybody? So earlier today on Sportcenter, there was this really interesting segment that caught my attention, and I've got to share it with you because it ties directly into the Lakers and some of the moves that might be coming down the line. They were talking about Luka Doncic and the comments he recently made about the toughest defenders he's had to deal with in the league. Now, Luka's not the kind of guy to just throw out random names. When he singles someone out, it's because he really feels it. And the two names that he mentioned? Marcus Smart and Herb Jones. Now, this is where it gets really intriguing for Lakers fans. Marcus Smart, of course, is already in LA. Luka has always wanted to play alongside him. That's not a secret. He has a ton of respect for Smart's defensive ability, his grit, the way he just makes life miserable for opposing stars. Luka even reached out to him before, trying to get him to join up. And now, it's finally happened. That's already a huge win. But here's where the speculation starts to build. The second name Luka mentioned was Herb Jones. And if you've been following the Lakers closely, you know that Herb's name has floated around their orbit before. He's exactly the type of player they've lacked at times. Versatile, long, disruptive defensively, and still young enough to be considered a piece for the future. He's 26 now, about to turn 27 by the time the season starts, and that's right in the sweet spot of his prime. Think about this. You pair Luka with Smart, and then potentially add Herb Jones into that mix. Suddenly, you're talking about two elite-level perimeter defenders who can guard multiple positions. Herb can slot in at the 2, 3, or even the 4, depending on the matchup. He's that kind of flexible piece who fits the modern NBA perfectly. If DeAndre Ayton settles into a steady role, and if a younger wing like Ade Mara, or whoever the Lakers groom, can learn under a guy like Herb, you've basically locked down your wings for years to come. That's the kind of long-term roster security teams dream about. Now, here's the reality check. Herb Jones can't be moved until January 14th, so realistically we're talking about trade deadline chatter, but that's also when things tend to heat up. Teams know what they are by then, and front offices start making real decisions about the future. And it just so happens that the Lakers have already shown a willingness to take on longer contracts now. That's a big shift in philosophy compared to the past couple of seasons, when they were clearly reluctant to commit beyond a year or two. For someone like Herb, who just signed a deal that locks him up for the foreseeable future, that's crucial. And look, Herb Jones probably isn't going to be a starter in New Orleans. The Pelicans are loaded with young talent, and while he's one of their better defenders, he might end up as more of a 6th or 7th man in that rotation. That's not a knock on him. It's just the reality of their roster construction. And when a guy of his caliber starts slipping into that odd man out role, teams like the Lakers need to be circling. Here's another thing. If the Lakers were weighing whether to give up assets for Andrew Wiggins or for Herb Jones, personally, I'd go after Herb. Wiggins has the pedigree, the finals experience, and he's absolutely a great player when locked in, but if you're sending out draft capital and rotation guys, Herb just feels like the smarter investment. Younger, cheaper, more upside defensively. If the asking price is the same, or even if you've got to sweeten the pot a little with an extra pick swap, I'd still prefer Herb Jones. So you see the picture starting to form, right? On one side, you've got Luka already pushing for these guys, Smart and Herb. On the other, you've got the Lakers front office openly exploring the trade market, actively engaged in talks around players like Andrew Wiggins. If the Wiggins price doesn't drop, and if things stall, the window for Herb could open wide come January. And I'll tell you this much, if you can imagine a lineup of Luka Doncic, Andrew Wiggins, Herb Jones, LeBron James, and DeAndre Ayton, that has the makings of the best starting 5 in the league. You'd have shooting, defense, athleticism, versatility, every single box checked. Both Wiggins and Herb are capable of giving you 20 points on any given night, but they also fit perfectly as complementary players alongside stars like Luka and LeBron. That's the beauty of it. They don't need the ball to make an impact, and that's exactly the type of player LA needs right now. All right, so continuing from what we just talked about with Luka Doncic and Herb Jones, here's the thing. based on everything we know leading up to his extension, the Pelicans aren't exactly opposed to trading Herb. They're not going to just hand him away, of course. They want the right price, and that's fair. But it opens the door for the Lakers to really get creative. You might even be looking at a 3-team trade scenario to make it work. Some clever front office maneuvering where everybody wins, because you can't just send a straight package and expect New Orleans to bite. Now, let's talk contracts. Herb Jones is making something like $25 million a year, give or take. And honestly, I'd rather pay him that than pay Austin Reeves $35–40 million a year. No disrespect to Reeves, he's a talented player, but from a pure two-way impact perspective, Herb just offers more. He's versatile, he can guard multiple positions, and he fits beautifully alongside stars like Luka. He's that kind of complementary piece that can elevate an entire roster. And here's why that matters so much. Luka's success in Dallas, especially with guys like Jalen Brunson and Kyrie Irving, shows how effective it can be to have a secondary playmaker or a secondary shot creator. If LeBron ever steps away, you don't want a gap in that role. You want someone who can pick up the slack, someone who can contribute without needing the ball every second. Herb Jones fits that profile perfectly. He doesn't need to dominate the offense. He just makes everything around him better. Now, let's factor in the center position. DeAndre Ayton is already an upgrade over what Dallas has had historically at center. His offensive game alone is better than anything Luka had previously. And defensively, he's solid enough to anchor a front court. Pair that with two high-end wings, say Herb Jones and another emerging star, or a player like Derek Duro, who can evolve into that role. You've basically solved the rotation for the Lakers. You throw in a bench scorer like Malik Monk, someone who can come in and hit shots without disrupting chemistry. And suddenly, your lineup has both balance and firepower. You're not just competitive, you're a perennial contender. You're one of the best teams in the league. Of course, we have to be honest about the concern. Health is always a factor, especially with Herb. Last season was rough for him. He played only 20 games, but context matters. The entire Pelicans roster was decimated by injuries. If we look at his career before that, he's been incredibly durable. 76 games one season, 66 the next, 78 another. That 20-game season seems like an outlier, the kind of bad luck year we've seen other players have. If he returns to playing 70-plus games consistently, the Lakers are in excellent shape long-term. Now let's break down the stats a bit. Last season, even in just 20 games, he averaged 32.4 minutes, took 8.6 shots per game, shot around 43 to 44% from the floor, and hit 31% from 3 on 3.6 attempts per game. Not great, but his career three-point percentage is around 37%, so that's more of a normal baseline. Two-point range? About 53%. Again, slightly below his usual, but solid. Free throw shooting remains excellent, 82.5% for his career. He also contributed roughly 4 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 2 steals, half a block, and 10 points per game. Those are strong, well-rounded numbers for a two-way wing. If we look at the season before that, which is really a better sample size, he played 76 games, starting all of them, and averaged 31 minutes per game. He shot 50% from the floor, 42% from 3 on 3.6 attempts, 56.8% on 2-point shots, with an effective field goal percentage just under 60%. Free throws, 86.7%. He averaged 6 rebounds, just under 3 assists, 1.5 steals, and a bit over 10 points per game. That's the player you're getting when healthy, reliable, efficient, versatile, and exactly the kind of piece that elevates a contender. So, yes, there are minor risks with Herb Jones, mainly around durability, but the potential upside far outweighs that. If the Lakers can make a move, whether via a clever trade or creative multi-team deal, Herb Jones could be the missing puzzle piece that takes this roster from great to elite. All right, let's wrap this up. One thing to keep in mind when looking at Herb Jones is context. Last season, the Pelicans were missing key pieces like DeAnthony Melton and Trey Murphy, so their offense was all over the place. Herb often had to create his own shot, take on responsibilities that normally wouldn't fall on him. And that's exactly why his percentages dipped. But imagine him alongside Luka long-term. He's not going to be the primary creator anymore. He's going to be in a system where Luka draws attention, LeBron handles the high-level orchestration, and other complementary pieces are spacing the floor. That's going to elevate Herb's efficiency. He might not hit 42% from three immediately, but 38 to 40% alongside elite playmaker? That's entirely realistic. Now think about the defensive side. Herb Jones is versatile. He can guard 1 through 4, which makes him an ideal foundation piece for a team looking to compete at the highest level for years. Combine him with Luka, DeAndre Ayton, and yes, potentially keeping Austin Reeves, and suddenly you have a lineup that is both physically imposing and strategically flexible. You're not just winning games, you're building a team that can dominate for the foreseeable future. Add another high-level 3-and-D wing, and the Lakers could realistically be one of the best teams in the league, year in and year out. Of course, a lot hinges on whether the Pelicans are willing to trade him and what the asking price would be. From what we've seen, New Orleans has shopped Herb before, and teams rarely shop a player and then say, "Never mind, we're keeping him." It's about finding the right value, and if the Lakers present a package that works, say, a first-round pick, a couple of pick swaps, maybe someone like Dalton Cager or Rui Hachimura thrown in, they could get it done. Personally, I'd rather overpay slightly for Herb Jones than give that same package for Andrew Wiggins. Why? Because Herb is the answer at the 3 or 4 for Luka's entire extension. You're locking in long-term stability, which is invaluable. Looking beyond the immediate season, Herb Jones also becomes a trade asset. If a superstar like Giannis or Nikola Jokic were ever on the market, Herb has more trade value than a Wiggins or a Hachimura. Imagine combining Austin Reeves, Herb Jones, and a couple of future first-round picks. Suddenly, the Lakers have a compelling package to offer a contender who can't bottom out or has limited draft assets. That's the type of forward-thinking roster management that separates contenders from pretenders. So, at the end of the day, the Lakers are in a fascinating position. They have Luka pushing for specific pieces, a willingness to take on long-term contracts, and multiple avenues to improve both now and in the future. Herb Jones could very well be that missing piece that turns this team into a perennial powerhouse. As always, this is a conversation, and I want to hear from you. What do you think? Could Herb Jones be the key to the Lakers' next era? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button. It really helps me keep putting out content like this. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss future updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.